So I think recording has started. So good afternoon, all of you. And I'm extremely sorry for the delay. The speaker has already, conveyed that message to me. So I think people are joining, and many people have disappeared also. I mean, they have, disappeared from the screen. So today, the topic is a multicultural conception of citizenship and analysis. Here, the speaker is Professor Gyana Swain from Gangadhar Meher University, and earlier, he was teaching in Ravensa University as an assistant professor, and here he joined as an professor, from assistant professor to professor. And the reason why I requested him to talk on this topic is that he has already written an article in an edited book edited by Professor Ashok Acharya, and the title of his article is Multicultural Conception of Citizenship. And I requested him so that he will speak something what is not there in the article along with what is there. And let me introduce the topic. And let me say that I will start with secularism. Secularism is all about managing relationship. Relationship means it manages three kinds of relationship. One is individual and religion, another religion and state, and third is state and the individual. And the relationship between individual and religion, from secularism point of view, we understand it as freedom of religion. And the relation between the religion and the state, we understand it as separation between the religion and politics. And the relation between the state and an individual, we understand it as citizenship. Now, what is citizenship? Citizenship basically it is a right. It is a right of okay. It is a right in which individual owes allegiance and in turn is entitled to its protection. So it is a right of every citizen. But the question is, do all citizens enjoy these rights equally? Perhaps the answer is no. And why no? Because to exercise a right or rights to be exercised needs three things. One is power, another is recognition of the society, and sanction of the state. So power means what? Power means from socio-economic, political, and cultural power of the individual, right? And individuals, if you see the society, any kind of society, including Indian society, and you will find that individuals are not equal since they are part of different kinds of majority cultures and minority cultures. There are different kinds of majority culture. There are different kinds of minority culture. And many groups and communities are in disadvantaged position. Their individuals are not.
Himanshu, there is some.
Okay, I did it. Okay. So many groups and communities are in disadvantaged position, and their individuals are not in a position to enjoy or exercise their rights, including political rights, that is called citizenship, and multiculturalism take care of these communities and their rights. At the same time, there is a growing realization on the part of the state is that groups are important part of the society along with individuals, and they must be recognized through guaranteeing of their rights. For example, different minority groups needs special protection, or they have special kinds of rights. So the primary agenda of multiculturalism is to construct a public domain where different cultures are present as equal. And multicultural citizenship acknowledges both individuals as a person and his individuality, which is formed in his or her cultural context. So in a sense, multicultural citizenship recognizes the cultural differences between the citizens. And the justification of multicultural citizenship is that most of the time the state promotes majority culture at the cost of minority culture. Now, here the significance of multicultural citizens, it comes. So today I am inviting our speaker, Professor Gyana Swain, to speak on how to understand the acknowledgement of multicultural citizenship on individual and individual as a part of political society and individual as a part of his or her own cultural context, and how this multicultural citizenship it acknowledges and it upholds both these identities of the individual. And I hope that he will speak on two models of multicultural citizenship. One is the differentiated citizenship, which try to substitute the universal citizenship, and another is actually multicultural citizenship, which adds something to the notion of universal citizenship, and that something is actually the special status. And he will speak, I hope that he will speak to what extent this multicultural citizenship is valid, reliable, and objective in Indian context. So now I welcome Professor Swain, and let us hear him, and then it will be followed by a discussion. So I am welcoming you, Professor Swain.
Thank you, Himanshu. Dr. Himanshu actually asked me if I can, first of all, my namaskar to Professor S.P. Guru, our revered teacher, and also thanks to Himanshu for organizing such a wonderful talk. Actually, let me be very clear from the beginning that this lecture is not any kind of original or intuitive arguments that I will be presenting here. So it will be a kind of assembling of ideas of different perspectives on multiculturalism being offered by different political philosophers that we come across when we discuss the topic of multiculturalism. First of all, actually multiculturalism is a very, very respected word, but at the same time is a very confusing word. Why it is confusing? Because when we speak about multiculturalism, when we speak about the debates on multiculturalism, when the confusion arises when we try to understand the idea of multiculturalism and how to define it. And one of the challenges of multiculturalism is, how to address the issue of, the different cultures that exist in one political system. So the debate between redistribution and recognition, That's the key debate that we see, and it actually creates a lot of confusion, and whether we should speak the language of redistribution or we should speak the language of recognition, as stressed by Taylor and many other people. Well, to begin with, I have decided to address my presentation here into 3-4 parts. I'll be roughly speaking for 25 to 30 minutes, and then we can have a couple of minutes for discussion. First of all, what exactly multiculturalism is? Because multiculturalism implies that, first and most important thing is that culture, is central to, our identities. That's the beginning of multiculturalism, that culture actually shapes our identities, culture shapes our thinking process, but at the same time, we also like the presence of other cultures, and we feel that the presence of other cultures actually enhance our the quality of our life in one particular system. So basically, multiculturalism refers to a kind of political system where we are quite conscious of our cultural identities, but at the same time, we have deep amount of respect to other cultures, and we derive a sense of pleasure, and it is a cause of celebration when we speak about other cultures. That's the crucial point when we speak about multiculturalism. But the key thing is that what actually, particularly why there is confusion with regard to multiculturalism is with regard to whether multiculturalism is a liberal idea or a very radical idea. That's the key thing. How to address the question of the minorities. This is where we begin, people get confused, because people like Will Kimilka, who is a renowned philosopher on and writer on multicultural citizenship. And also we have Iris Young, who actually presents a absolutely opposite view on the question of citizenship and how to address the minorities. So it is a question on how to, and again we have Charles Taylor, we have Bhikkhu Parekh, but I will be speaking on two things. One is that various perspectives on multiculturalism, why they are inadequate to understand, the Indian perspectives on a multicultural political system. That's what I will be trying to present here, because this is where I will try to present my own views on my own take on the views on the question of multiculturalism. The first thing is that when we speak about Will Kimilka, he's a serious scholar, and actually, the point is, Kimilka tries to understand the idea of minorities, in two ways. He identifies two kinds of minorities. One is the national minorities and, the immigrants. So national minorities are those minorities, they are actually original inhabitants of the land. Okay, so for example, the Adivasis in India, for example, the blacks, American blacks in United States of America. So they are the original inhabitants of the land. So they are called as national minorities. And Kimilka says that these kind of minorities should be protected, should be given all kinds of rights, and they are absolutely equal to everyone. But with the advent of globalization, what has actually unfortunately developed in the last couple of centuries is that the rise of immigration has actually produced a series of different kind of multicultural states to coexist, and that's why Kimilka is arguing for a different kind of minorities, and they are called as immigrants. And immigrants are also minorities, but according to Kimilka, immigrants cannot be given all kinds of rights, particularly the representation rights. Kimilka is not very favorable to the idea of giving rights to the immigrants, but the special representation rights are given to the national minorities. And Kimilka's understanding of multiculturalism is actually centered around the theme of societal culture. I mean, how we can promote the societal culture, and how to define the minorities. But the problem with Will Kimilka is that Kimilka's understanding of minorities does not take into account. I mean, let's say, there are other kinds of minorities. Okay, there are other kinds of minorities who are oppressed, who are deprived of their natural rights. So they're actually deprived. For example, let's say the transgender people. There was a time when transgender people were not getting any rights. So what about these people? Are they not minorities? So that's why the Kimilka's understanding of minorities had an internal problem, and that's why it was difficult to defend the idea of a multicultural citizenship based on Kimilka's arguments, even though Kimilka was a solid liberal political philosopher. And the other big problem with Kimilka's philosophy was that when you argue or build your arguments using Kimilka's multicultural citizenship framework, you actually arrive at a liberal political conception, and there is no scope for any kind of minority let's say collective identities, which usually we find in many third world countries, the issue of collective identities. So that's the problem with Will Kimilka's arguments. So, but to contrast his views, we have Iris Young, who actually presented the theory of, differentiated citizenship. I mean, the basic argument is that, the minorities, I mean, first of all, we must define who are minorities. So, like Kimilka, Young also defines who are the minorities, but her definition of minorities is absolutely different from, Kimilka's arguments, because Kimilka is, using the framework of whether you belong to whether you are an original inhabitant or you have been an immigrant. But here, the central theme of defining who is a minority is based on the question of oppression. Whether you belong to the oppressed category or you don't belong to the oppressed category. It's a very pretty simple thing. I mean, it's a wonderful thing because, as I said, people like, the groups like transgender people, the groups like tribals, many oppressed categories were missing in Kimilka's arguments of minorities. So, to identify the minorities and to address the minority question and their rights, Young actually argues for a more advanced notion of minorities, and argues that, minorities should be defined in terms of oppression. So that's exactly where, again, we encounter a lot of problems. The problem is, how do you define, who is or who belongs to an oppressed category? I mean, whose perspective is it? I mean, suppose somebody argue that she belongs to an oppressive category. So, how do you authenticate it? Let's say women. Say, a common example is women. How do you say that women are, or women belong to the oppressed categories? So there will be a time. So the problem with Young is that there will be a time when all the minorities actually will be majorities. Right? The minorities, when, for example, women, for example, tribals, let's say Dalits, scheduled castes, all the marginalized communities, you include everyone. So ultimately, you end up creating a majority structure, in the name of minorities. So that's the problem with Young's definition of minorities. And again, as far as the differentiated citizenship point is concerned, that is okay, because what she argues is that we must treat those minorities in a different way. They should be given some special rights. They should be given in a different way. Okay, so that's the key question that we try to understand. So that's why Young's idea of differentiated citizenship is problematic, but it has a purpose. I mean, the idea of giving more emphasis to oppression actually it gets attention. Oppression. Remember, I see basically this. I am addressing the students. Many senior faculty members are sitting, so. This is just for the students. See, I told two things. One is by Kimilka, who are the minorities? There are two kinds of minorities. I repeat, national minorities and immigrants. And here, minority is constructed around the term oppression. Okay? So, these two things we have discussed so far. There is another perspective, which is little bit different from, the liberal conception is being offered by Charles Taylor. Taylor actually emphasizes on the question of, politics of recognition. I mean, in the famous, work, Politics of Recognition, Taylor argues that all cultures have equal values and they should be recognized. Okay. So all cultures need to be recognized irrespective of the fact that whether they are minority cultures or majority cultures. Okay. But the problem with Taylor is that Taylor, doesn't invoke the idea that, how, one will, respect those cultures, whether it is through law or it is through dialogue or whatever means. I mean, you cannot have, a kind of abstract concept like how do you, give emphasis to the whole notion of, recognizing, minority cultures. Well, theoretically speaking, what Taylor said is very good, that, we need to recognize the minority cultures, but how to recognize it is the biggest question. And that's the critical question that some of the most advanced political systems like India, particularly democracies, liberal democracies, they need to address and they need to find solution to this question. Okay, so this is where Taylor has a problem. And then finally, where I prefer to take a position offered by Bhikkhu Parekh on the question of multiculturalism, which is basically dialogical. Okay, and this is where I find an answer to the question of multiculturalism and how it can be constructed, as a solid political argument in any kind of political system. It's a solid political argument given by Bhikkhu Parekh. So Parekh's understanding of multiculturalism is something interesting. Parekh says that let's forget about that, whether who are the minorities, who are the majorities. We are not interested in the question of, who are the majorities and who are the minorities. The first and foremost important thing is that we believe in each other's culture and we have a deep sense of respect for each other's culture. And we must resolve or develop a political framework to, manage the political system. So culture is actually the inspiring ground to manage the political systems. So I think so. Bhikkhu Parekh's understanding of political culture and how cultures should coexist, is very, very interesting as far as the modern liberal democracies are concerned, and particularly India. And why I say that Indian political framework is important when we use Bhikkhu Parekh is that see, I don't think any of the what I can say frameworks offered by Young or let's say Kimilka are ideally are ideal for Indian context. Okay, any of the theories that we find because see, now let me be very, I would like to have a very passionate presentation about why I say that this dialogical method offered by Bhikkhu Parekh is important because, see, if you look at the history of Indian civilization, it is absolutely based on dialogues. It is not, see, you see that United States of America, we give examples of Canada, we give examples of Australia, we give examples of France when we speak about multiculturalism. But the experience of multiculturalism in those countries are very, very new and recent. And they are post-Enlightenment products. Okay, so that's why their theorizing multiculturalism is in those places is different than Indian context. Because in India, multiculturalism is not a enlightenment, post-enlightenment project. Multiculturalism is something which is, inherently part of Indian culture. It's not like that. Even though the culture was designed in a dominant and, and subordinate kind of thing, but then everybody they were living in a very harmonious way. Till the medieval period. So I think we need to distinguish between two kinds of multicultural frameworks around the world. One is post-Enlightenment. This is the point that I would like to make here, is the post-Enlightenment period where people like Kimilka, Young, Taylor have a point, and they all are true to some extent. But as far as the Indian framework is concerned, it is absolutely, I don't think these frameworks are adequate to comprehend the issue of, respecting different cultures. Because you cannot just develop a theoretical framework and argue that you will define minorities and, how minorities will be defined. Because, so I think we need to distinguish between these post-Enlightenment and Indian perspectives on multiculturalism. And I believe that Bhikkhu Parekh and Parekh's arguments on dialogues between different cultures are central to our existence as a political, society. So that's why I believe that, these two things I would like to mention here. And the second important thing I would like to address here is that even though actually Bhikkhu Parekh speaks about dialogues, the problem with Bhikkhu Parekh's understanding is that even though he speaks about dialogues, yet the question is, he also would like to address multiculturalism within that framework of that Enlightenment project. Actually, even though he speaks all sense, but again, the theoretical understanding of Parekh is a post-Enlightenment understanding. What I'm saying is that we need to go beyond that Enlightenment project and go back to our ancient past where we all believed in the philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It's not that multiculturalism is something new to India. So I think this is where we have to take a stand, where I would say that Bhikkhu Parekh's understanding of multiculturalism needs to contextualize the arguments in the context of, going back to the ancient period. And the other important aspect that I wanted to address here is, the kind of political system that we see today, particularly the rise of the extreme nationalist forces around the world. It's not about only India. It's actually a worldwide phenomena. You see that rise. You go back to 10 years back, rise of Donald Trump. Okay, even in many countries. Okay, Israel. I mean, see, the rise of these forces actually have changed the notion of multiculturalism. Okay, the two crucial things they have challenged the idea of multiculturalism today. Number one is, this rise of, the extreme nationalist forces that have challenged the views of, challenged the notion of multiculturalism. For example, let's take the case of, United States, when Donald Trump was, he was the president. I mean, the way, as I understood the case is that Donald Trump was not in favor of, giving jobs to Indian people. So, I mean, there was some problem in Trump's, even though people in India, they were very supportive of Trump's administration. I could see many supporters of Trump and they were, puja karutile Trump ku. I could see some of the posters. But unfortunately, Trump was, had a different voice on the question of how the immigrants should be treated. The same is with India, the way the CA, all these new regulations on the citizenship, all these new regulations on this whole question of, who are actually original, inhabitants of, Indian territory. I mean, these are all very complex questions. And one needs to be very careful when we argue about the question of, the question of multiculturalism. So I think, the rise of these nationalist forces, they have presented one of the biggest challenges to the idea of a multicultural state. But the question is, do we really need a multicultural state? Why do you need a multicultural state? Okay, see, two things I would be saying here. One is that the rise of aggressive nationalist forces, they actually oppose immigrants. They don't oppose the original inhabitants of the land who are actually in minorities. They don't oppose that. So how to construct that? Okay. So the inequalities between the nation states, particularly why immigration takes place, because everybody wants to settle down in better countries where employment opportunities are more and everything is good and fine. So this is the point. So let's say today most of the European states at one point they actually stopped people from outside their state to enter their territories. This I think few years back it happened. One boy was he just seesaw jane kote chota puote apan mane samaste. I hope all of you remember. I mean, there were huge migration from different countries. So it's a unfortunate development. So this is why it is important that we need to understand the idea of multiculturalism in present context. But my point is that when we try to address the issue of multiculturalism in countries like India, in countries like where the right-wing forces, they have captured power for a long period of time and they have a different perspective on the question of nationalism. And which is mostly based on some kind of strong identities, whether it is based on religion or something else. So there actually the entire thesis on multiculturalism needs to be revised. Okay, so it cannot be grounded on that question. And let me tell you how Indian intellectuals, I quote, it would be wrong if I do not quote people like Professor Patnaik, who actually continuously speak and use the language of dialogues, and particularly if you look at the Godhra incident, and let's say, why not Godhra? Why Godhra? And also, particularly the Bhadrak riots, any kinds of riots where minorities are subject to any kind of atrocities. The question is, what happens after that? Is it a question of do they ମାନେ କ'ଣ ସେଠି ସବୁବେଳେ ଖାଲି ଝଗଡ଼ା ହେଉଛି riots ପରେ how do they survive? We had a big conflict in Rourkela. We had a big conflict in Kandhamal. We had a big conflict in Godhra. But the question is, how do people reconcile those, difficult situations, and how do they re-engage themselves and find a political solution to the common existence? It's something which is missing from the multicultural experiences. Okay, so that's the key question: why multiculturalism is, badly, theoretically designed as far as India is concerned. Yes, we have, different traumatic situations. So we have a series of conflicts. We had a series of, difficult situations between fights between, let's say, Sikh riots. But what happened after 1984? Do we have any more riots? But again, the same Hindus and Sikhs are staying together. So there must be some kind of engagements. There must be some kind of dialogues which is happening within the community level, which is particularly the multicultural framework is missing. Okay, we are concerned about defining who are the minorities and how minorities are to be given, importance, how we need to theorize the minority rights. But the key point is, instead of theorizing, if we find a political solution to the minorities' existence and how we, what I can say, the minorities' sustenance in a particular political system is something that we have to find it out. That's why it is important to, so the whole text of multiculturalism, I believe, has to be revised, in India, and particularly in third world countries where the experience of different nations existing in one political system. Okay, so that experience has to, that multiculturalism theory has to be, redeveloped and reimagined in a new bottle. We cannot just say use, and also Bhikkhu Parekh's idea of dialogues between different cultures also need to go back to the past system and draw inspiration from the way Indian civilization. And remember, I will tell you one thing, this is very crucial for students here, is that let's say, see, people are now worried about Hinduism, right? I will tell you one important example. See, Mughals stayed here for around 600 years. And what is the percentage of Muslims here? Around 15-20%. Did they change? There was an opportunity to convert everyone into Muslims. So that the inner strength of one's culture has to be given importance. So I think this whole question of, dialogues and locating those dialogues in one particular tradition is something that we have to find and theorize it. This is where I think we can construct a true multicultural society. Our tradition has a space for a multicultural framework. This is what I mean to say here. Okay, so I would like to, again tell you that today I have discussed about some of the conceptual frameworks offered by different political philosophers like Kimilka, Young, Taylor, Parekh, and then I tried to argue that, in Indian context, we need a other framework to understand the idea of multiculturalism. So we cannot just use those theoretical formulations, and particularly I distinguish between two kinds of multicultural nations. One is the Enlightenment, post-Enlightenment product of a multicultural nation state, and the multicultural societies which actually exist before Enlightenment, like India. So we need to distinguish, and we cannot use those Enlightenment theoretical frameworks to understand, multicultural societies, ancient multicultural societies like India. So, these are roughly my arguments here in the, for today. But I would be very happy to, get any feedbacks, and also some kind of ideas, so that I can enrich my understanding on the question of multiculturalism. And also, it would be very exciting if some of the students can share some of their experiences, what exactly do they mean by a multicultural society, and give some examples of multicultural societies, so that we can have a discussion here on the question of multiculturalism. Once again, thank you to Dr. Himanshu and Professor Guru and other esteemed teachers who are patiently listening to some of the not very important themes. I don't know whether I made any sense, but thank you, sir, and thank you, Dr. Himanshu, for giving me an opportunity to, speak. I don't know any other teacher who is present here. I think Swarnamai ma'am is also here. I saw her. Namaskar, madam. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for giving me a patient hearing. Thank you.
So thank you, Professor Swain. I mean, I am happy and I am unhappy also. I am happy because you gave a critical appraisal on multicultural conception of citizenship, right? You evaluated it. And I'm unhappy because what you missed is that since students are participating, and this concept multicultural citizenship is a very conventional subject. But the moment you add multicultural citizenship, then it becomes very much unconventional. And the title of your talk was that an analysis. That means you should have relate then what is multiculturalism, then what is citizenship, what is a multicultural citizenship, what are the theories of multicultural citizenship, and what is the practice of multicultural citizenship, then where is the crisis, to what extent we are success dealing in those crises. So I was thinking in those terms, because I am sure that if it would have been a class, after your lecture, if I would have asked student any questions, I know that they might not answer it, because
Actually,
it was very much.
Himanshu, actually, since the presence of your presence actually makes a difference. So I thought that you are asking some my own perspectives on multiculturalism. So maybe some other day I can present some of the basic ideas on the multicultural citizenship. But I thought that, so I thought in a different way. But anyway, it's a good point that I will note it. But whenever you give me another opportunity, I will keep it in mind. Thank you, Himanshu.
No, that doesn't mean that, let me complete, then you will come back.
Yeah.
So I am happy because you did a good job while appraising this, multicultural conception of citizenship. But I think here we are for students actually. So students' concern is the priority. But I have certain questions from your presentation only. The question is that you shared that a multicultural society can sustain only when the multicultural prescription on citizenship will be followed by the state, right? And you have given different models and the limitation to different models also. In one of your model, you said that we must have respect to each other's culture. My question is, again, I am coming to the practice, that do we have respect to each other's culture today, right? And we are seeing, intoleration, politics of intoleration. So from that perspective, how come you justify a theory when practice is abandoning that theory? That's the first question. And the second thing is that to what extent, I asked you in the beginning that you should, or we are expecting from you that you should speak on that to what extent multicultural citizenship in India is successful, right? So there are crises, right? And in that connection, let me further ask you that you said that the rise of aggressive nationalist politics is the main reason of the declination of the multicultural state. But let me ask you, when this aggressive nationalist politics was not there at the time of, let me say, at the time of Congress regime, to what extent it was successful, right? And is it fair to blame the rise of nationalist politics as the cause of the declination of multicultural state? And the last, question or doubt what I have, that if Indian history was very much dialogical, right, very much based on the dialogue, then why it is not prevailing today? Why it is not prevailing today? Right? Now, please respond to this so that next I will go to our dignitaries like Professor Guru, and he will say his observation. Then we'll go back to the questions asked by my students. So please.
Okay. As Himanshu has a long list of questions, but I could only identify three questions. First is, he asked multicultural societies, we must respect each culture, and is it happening today? I said, see, I will say that wherever it is not happening, there is violence. Okay, see, when that, it's a very pretty simple answer. If it is not happening, respecting the other cultures, violence is the, ultimate answer to those questions. So you see any societies, any micro societies, I mean, don't take India as an example. You use small cities as examples. I mean, you see, for example, cities like Cuttack, which are very, very peaceful, despite the presence of many, substantial presence of many minorities. So you take examples of micro cities, small cities, where multiculturalism is an issue. Multicultural societies, they exist and they coexist. But wherever they don't coexist, wherever there is no respect, there will be violence. So it's a pretty simple answer. But the important question, I think the most important question which you asked, I believe, is you said that, why only the aggressive nationalist forces should be blamed for challenging a multicultural framework. Yes, true. When parties like Congress they were there, other kinds of challenges that took place to minority religions. But the question is, by and large, if you look at the social fabric of the society, the general perception of the minorities, is that they are not secure. But when you go back to 1980s, particularly that, you are only trying to, identify one period, particularly that, Sikh violence. There may be some other small issues. But the kind of insecurities that we see today, if you ask any general perception, so this is where I think, we have a difference of opinion. I think the point of what I can say, the aggressive nationalist forces, and they see, we have to try to understand why the conflict in 1984 happened and how these conflicts in today's, today in India it is happening. We need to understand the context in which it is happening. Okay, 1984 violence had a specific context. Okay, and gradually it turned into, it took a communal turn. But today, the other kind of change, there is a series of attempts to communalize the what I can say, the sentiments. For example, see, recently I think few kichi jo jogi mane jo achanti semane sabu jo the way they have tried to portray other religions and many objectionable things. I think that's the, I'm not saying that we must only criticize, the aggressive nationalist forces. But what has actually happened is that as a result of which, the minorities, they have also become very, very aggressive, particularly the Muslims, the Christian communities. They have become also equally very, very aggressive and positioning their rights in a different context. So that, I think this is a very important question, but I think we need to differentiate the context in which we are speaking. So the third thing is that why it is prevailing today, and wow, particularly, see, I would like to give you some of the examples. See, any theory on multiculturalism, I believe, in India should actually do a micro study on the local practices, the community level practices that we see and engage ourselves in day-to-day life. I'll give you one example, since most of the people are from Sambalpur, I believe. गोटे आमर एठी अच्छी ए जो संबलपुर रे कोठी अच्छी एक्जाक्टली, बट ए टाउन भितर गोटे कोठी छोट परिवारटे अच्छी, गोटे हिंदू परिवार, देयर इज ए हिंदू.
Speak in English because some non-Odias are also there.
Oh, okay. I thought everybody is from Odisha. Okay, so there is a Hindu family in Sambalpur town itself. They actually celebrate Muslim festivals, particularly that Tajikia kind of thing. They celebrate it. They are celebrating it for the last 400 years. So and everybody knows about Pira Jahania kind of thing. So every locality, wherever you go, you will find some kind of communal, dialogue between different communities and practices that is happening. But we are actually missing those stories. We are actually looking at the larger picture, and we are drawing conclusions based on our larger experiences. But the micro experience is largely peaceful. That's what I'm saying. If you go back to a village where Muslims are staying or Dalits are staying, there will be a framework where they are existing peacefully. Okay, so I think we need to discover those experiences instead of building a structure based on larger experiences. We need to develop a framework where we can actually see those micro level experiences.
No, I think I agree with you. I think you brought a very important point that at a micro level there is dialogue and people are very much peace oriented, and we must follow the folk culture rather than seeing some macro aspect.
But and particularly when we speak about multicultural society, particularly when we speak about multicultural society.
Again, my question is that, see, multicultural society or multicultural citizenship, it includes both micro and macro. But at the micro level, things are happening and things are going as prescribed by the multiculturalist. But why it doesn't happen at the macro level?
No, that's several reasons can be attributed why it is not happening at the macro level. First is the politicization of the entire thing, and particularly if you look at the behavior of mainstream media, particularly the print media, the electronic media, how they are behaving. Okay, and those who are in power, particularly the minority communities, those who are in power, they look at the way the Muslims, they have organized themselves, particularly, Owaisi, Asauddin Owaisi, how he is, mobilizing the Muslims. Why it is not happening? It is not happening because now people are using it as a opportunity to come to power. That's the key thing. So the moment they will realize that it is not a tool to be used to come to power, it will not happen. So I don't have any explanation other than this. There may be, other people will have something to say, but I think this is what I would like to respond here.
So thank you, Professor Swain. I
Yeah.
mean, the debate doesn't end here. It will continue. It will continue. So now I welcome Professor Syama Prasad Guru, and he is with us from the beginning to till now. And
It's a actually great opportunity to meet Professor Guru. Thank you, sir.
So I request him to give his observation, comment, or he can inspire us, or any limitation what we commit. He can speak. Sir, please. You have to unmute, sir, yourself.
Yes. Am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes. Oh, yes. First of all, I would like to congratulate the convener, Himanshu, for organizing such excellent web discussions. And at the same time, I also congratulate Professor Swain for delivering his talk on the topic. I listened to him thoroughly from the beginning to the end. But when I try to correlate the discussions to the topic, I'm thoroughly dismayed. I couldn't bring about any linkage or correlations between the discussions and the topic. The nomenclature of the topic or the caption is found to be unmatched with the discussions. The topic is on multicultural conception of citizenship. Is it so?
Yeah.
Multicultural conception of citizenship. As I understand, the topic has two major dimensions. The first one is theoretical, and the second one is empirical. So what is the theoretical framework on the basis of which the empirical discussions have proceeded? I couldn't find any theoretical framework. The speaker has not defined what is culture. He has not defined what is multiculturalism. For he has not defined what is multicultural conception of citizenship. And he has not focused on the reciprocal influences between multicultural conception of society and the politics of citizenship. How multicultural conception of citizenship influences politics of the society, and how politics of the society influences multicultural conception of society. The linkage between society and politics is totally omitted. I couldn't find any linkage theoretically. And that is the basic problem why the discussions has digressed completely from the caption of the topic, from the nomenclature. This is the main problem that I noted. And moreover, throughout the discussions, the speaker has exclusively focused on the minorities. What about the culture of other groups of the people of the society? What is culture? Culture is the orientations of an individual toward societal objects. It is psychological, it inheres in the mind of the man. So towards varieties of aspects of the society, we form our orientations. And the patterns of orientations at the level of the individual, at the level of groups of people of the society is what is known as culture of different groups or culture of the people of the society as a whole. And the population of the society is divided or may be divided along various socioeconomic dimensions or aspects or variables. In terms of race, ethnicity, language, religion, gender, region, education, income. The total population of the society may be grouped, and every group of people of the society has a distinct pattern of culture. And that is what is known as multiculturalism. And how multiculturalism influences citizenship? Is culture the basis of granting citizenship to an individual? How do we link it? And how the politics of the society influences citizenship and also the multicultural aspects of citizenship? That needs to be explored theoretically as well as empirically. Then only the discussions can be understood amply, quite in conformity with the caption or nomenclature of the topic. Otherwise, the discussions will be totally vague, unrelated to the topic, and incomprehensible to the audience. And a layman like me is unable to understand the discussions. Therefore, I request the speaker to keep in note these few points, to prepare a theoretical framework first, and then undertake empirical discussions. He must give examples from Indian context. How multicultural aspects of the society influences politics of the state, and how a state or politics of the society influences the citizenship. He must come forward with concrete instances or examples, especially from the beginning of the independence of our country. That should have the pattern of discussions. Then only it can be comprehensible to the audience at large and to a layman like me. I'm not a specialist on the topic, but I'm not able to understand what he says. Why he relates it exclusively to the minorities, not to different religions, different genders, different educational groups, different regional groups, different language groups. He must come forward with concrete instances and examples in empirical situation. Yet, despite the deficiencies that I noted, I request the speaker to revise his discussions quite in conformity with the caption of the topic, so that the discussions will not digress from it. And I hope with a revised conception, he will again give talk in this web's discussion, in this web seminar, so that I hope to understand what he says. Thank you.
So thank you, sir. I mean, I have read on multiculturalism. So I have read Kimilka, I have read Gurpreet Mahajan. So I can sense what Professor Swain was telling. But your comment was very much, I think it's very much methodological, right?
The
And
points
since
are well taken, Himanshu. I think Professor Guru, what he is saying is correct. I mean, I have noted it, so it will be.
And what Himanshu, what is the mistake with Himanshu? When you introduced the topic, you included or forcefully make an entry to the concept of secularism. Why? What is the linkage? In multicultural concept of citizenship, why do you include secularism here? You must explain it. You are free to include, but you must make a linkage.
okay, sir, I think I can answer. I can answer here like this.
I do not
Citizenship.
find any mention of the word secularism in the topic. It is multiculturalism, conception of citizenship and analysis. So stick to the topic. And if you bring something, some terminology from outside, you make a linkage of it.
No, I got it, sir. I mean, why I started with secularism? Let me say it. Why I started with secularism? Because citizenship is one aspect of secularism.
Yes, that you are right. But you fail to explain it.
Acha. Okay, it's well taken. So I will not go into that. But I think Professor Swain and me, I think we are.
Citizenship is essentially a secular concept. It has nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with language, nothing to do with gender, nothing to do with race or caste or tribe. It is essentially a secular concept. But you are linking it to multiculturalism, which is a non-secular concept. That is the problem there.
No, I think, sir, multicultural citizenship has its own significance. It's because that state treats all individuals equally, but all individuals are not
Yes,
equal.
I agree. But is citizenship granted on the pattern of culture of a group of people? No. Answer me.
Professor Swain, you can enter
It's all
into it.
right. Thank you very much.
No, he's entering.
No, no, no. I mean,
I mean, you
I'm
enter, no
actually.
problem. It's a discussion actually, no problem.
No, 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 no. See, it's a discussion, but the points which Professor Guru raised, they are quite pertinent. So there is, I mean, he's speaking on a different point. So I don't think, I mean, there is any point to debate on that question. Okay.
Okay.
So I have already noted it, and I have already. So it's a request also to you to arrange a talk again, so that I can again
Yes,
talk on this.
yes. You arrange a talk
Yeah.
on this very topic so that you will come
Yeah.
forward with a revised conception.
Yeah, yeah. I will give a
Yes,
revised presentation on the
yes,
theoretical formulations on the question of
yes.
multicultural
First,
citizens.
prepare a theoretical framework, then bring it to the empirical part and correlate it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sir, completely agreed.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
So
you. Good.
simply mentioning the names of a few Western scholars will not serve the purpose, because we are interested to understand the topic.
Okay, I think we need to stop this, discussion. And I think
Thank you.
some of my students have asked some questions.
Yes, yes.
So I request Abhipsa, you have asked a question. You have written a question. I want you to ask directly to the speaker.
Himanshu, I can read their questions.
Okay, then please.
Let me ask one by one. Abhipsa, position of multiculturalism in India in recent times. See, I have already, given my own views on this question of, how do it's a perspective, how you look at the question of multiculturalism, and how you, I mean, understand the whole issue of in what context you are asking this question.
Yes.
Okay. So, theoretically speaking, yes, multiculturalism do exist, but there are a number of challenges to the whole issue of multiculturalism. That's the key thing I would like to say. So,
Professor Swain, this is not merely on multiculturalism. This concept of multiculturalism in relation to citizenship.
no, no, sir, the question is on multiculturalism that she
Oh,
has
that is
asked.
that. Yes, then that be a separate question unrelated to the topic.
Yeah, yeah. Then there is good evening, sir. This Sahadev in India commonly spread of religious relativism, but where Canada is not any what is the reason behind that? India. Uh, my question in India commonly spread of religious. What is religious relativism? I don't know.
Sahadev, are you there? Can you explain whatever you have
Religious
written?
relativism. Is there any word like that?
I'm also a little bit.
What is religious relativism?
There may be, but I
No, I
don't
didn't.
know.
I didn't.
Yeah. Anyway, so he will. I think I don't know, but the meeting. Acha, again. Acha, there is my international legal provision to tackle multicultural issues like Uyghur. See, there are many international treaties. But the question is, which countries are following which treaties are important. Many international treaties are there, to respect different cultures. See, for example, you have mentioned about Uyghur Muslims, but is China admitting officially about those issues? Uh, that's the question. I mean, is it are they brought into the legal framework? We are just getting to know about these facts from different, outside resources. So there are international agreements. There are international, norms. I would say there are norms, but it is not obligatory on the nation states to follow those norms. That I would like to say that how.
91 আসলে
Then acha, feeling very Cosmo. How Isma, that how will you see Islamophobia in the context of?
the 91
No, that Rinku has asked a question on whether how you will see Islamophobia in the context of multiculturalism. Do it will affect racialism? See, I mean, I don't know. I mean, in what sense you say that Islamophobia? See, any kind of phobia based on religion is bad. Okay, I mean whether it is Islamophobia or it is Hinduism phobia or any Christianity phobia, any kind of phobia is bad. Okay, so that's the thing. But anyway, there is another question. I think why Jeremy Walden concept of multiculturalism, cosmopolitan multiculturalism. Okay. See, the point is, I have heard about those Jeremy Walden's concept of cultural, nationalism. But actually, I'm not very sure, whether this whole idea of his idea of cosmopolitan multiculturalism is a very viable thing, because the whole idea of cosmopolitanism is a very, I would say that not a very sustainable idea. Okay, so theoretically yes, but I don't know whether this is a, there is anything that we can agree on that, because cosmopolitanism has always been an ideal situation in today's world. So I would say that. But anyway, so I would like to respond to this question in this way, because cosmopolitanism is not a very theoretically it has good theoretical formulations, but it is not a very ideal legal framework when we talk about how it can be practiced. I think Sahadev has written something. Means we should not consider any other religion superior or inferior to our.
Yeah, Professor Swain. Professor Swain. So
Yes.
I want Sahadev to directly ask what he wants to ask. Sahadev,
Yeah,
are you
yeah, yeah.
there?
My question is why India is common state of religious relativism, but it is
Sahadev, you are not audible.
Are you
I
using
don't.
your earphone?
sir, no, sir, no.
Please use your earphone.
Sir, my pass is not here, sir. Sorry.
Okay. Right now you are
I
audible.
can read that. I can read that.
Sir, I am written here.
Okay. Then Professor Swain, you can handle it. The written part.
Yeah, religious relativism means we should not consider any other religion superior to they believe all. Okay, so what is then problem? International. See, I understood what you mean by relativism, religious relativism, but again, I am not clear with your question on how you link it with Canada. Okay, because yeah.
People living in high community.
Hello.
I think I mean, Sahadev, I cannot hear you. And I am also surprised seeing all of you asking question on multiculturalism. You know, the topic is multicultural citizenship, and you must understand the multicultural citizenship as mentioned by Professor Guru. And your question should be asked on citizenship. Right. There are many issues. The moment you bring multicultural citizenship, there are many issues in Indian politics or politics in different part of the world. And you are not asking question on that. You are asking on multiculturalism, and some of the questions I really don't understand.
But Himanshu, I have a suggestion.
Yeah, yeah.
See, actually, see, as rightly pointed out by Professor Guru, I think maybe in the last week of January, we can organize another talk on multicultural citizenship and the same theme, okay, where actually it is my mistake. So I thought that I should give a very, I was thinking something else.
No, I
But
have
I think,
let me say you, I mean, I have read your article and I have read all other literatures. I understand what you are saying, but since I
yeah,
have read, I have, I am at a different level, then I can sense you. But the students are not sensing. I mean, the students are,
yeah, yeah,
they cannot relate the
yeah.
citizenship,
Anyway,
whether
so,
citizenship is a
so I
secular
think,
concept or citizenship is also a multicultural concept. And what is the
yeah, yeah,
problem with the secular component of citizenship? Right. So
yeah.
somewhere, I mean, you critically, in the beginning, I told that it is the topic would have been better if I would have made it like this, a critical appraisal.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
right. So that's
But
why I think
Himanshu,
students are confused.
I think you organize another talk on this whole question, okay? Because after listening to Professor Guru's comments, I feel very tempted to speak on the whole issue again with a very from a student perspective. I would like to say, because I thought after also you pointed out, so I think I need to speak on the whole issue of. I mean, the point is, I should have actually presented the whole of my article. That would have been ideal. Actually, I went beyond my article. Okay, I hope if you have read it, some of the things are not there. So I tried to went beyond my article. So that's the key problem. Okay, so what I will do is I will try to present the whole of my article, and some of the things as rightly pointed out by Professor Guru, I would like to present on that. Okay, so that would be ideal, because otherwise people there is a lot of confusion on the whole issue of but one thing is, multiculturalism and multicultural citizenship. I mean, there is a close connection between these things. I mean, you can't just say कि multicultural citizenship is a other concept, and I don't know, but maybe I may be wrong. But anyway, I'll try to be more um, to be more grounded on the subject itself, and I will try to again present on the subject. Okay,
No,
so I
I think you are not wrong. Like, let me say from my perspective, you are not wrong. There is a concept of citizenship that is embedded in the multiculturalism, and multiculturalism it has problem with the secular component of citizenship, that all citizens are not equal and all are not enjoying their rights that has been given by the constitution, by the state. I mean, in which way we should formulate the theory of citizenship so that there will be equal enjoyment of rights, citizenship rights, right? So I think there is a connection, but it's all about relating everything in a very comprehensive way, right? And what you actually critically analyzed everything, but you have to. I think it would have been better if we would have figured out all these things before we go to analyzing it critically.
Yes, maybe
Right.
non-verbal.
Yeah.
So
See, I think last point I would like to mention, and then I will finish. See, someone is asking continuously on the question of thick multiculturalism and thin multiculturalism. See, and I think asking whether India, which camp put India. See, India can be put into these two categories, whether thick multiculturalism and the thin multiculturalism. These two things can be completely understood when we apply India. See, it's all how you understand the whole idea of cultural coexistence. And ତମେ କେମିତି ବୁଝୁଛ ସେଇଟା ହେଉଛି ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ. Okay, I think that is more important.
Sign out.
So now
Okay.
I request, Abhipsa Tripathi to provide a so-called vote of thanks. You will not accept it. So Abhipsa, are you there?
Only thanks, no vote on thanks.
Oh, it's okay. You have to unmute. You have to unmute.
Okay, sir. Good evening, all. Respected speaker, Professor Gyana Ranjan Swain, sir, our convener, Dr. Himanshu, Sekhar, Mishra, sir, SP Guru, sir, and all our most valued invited guests and participants. It is my pleasure and privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of my Department of Political Science and Public Administration, Sambalpur University, extended my vote of thanks to our speaker, Professor Gyana sir, for giving his valuable time towards gracing this event with his thoughts. His idea on multiculturalism enlightens all the participants presented here. Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge with us. It was indeed very helpful for all of us to listen to you, and thereby we are inspired towards our academics. Again, I would like to take this opportunity to thank my supervisor, Dr. Himanshu Sekhar Mishra sir, for arranging this webinar. Actually, on every Sunday, he is arranging such webinars on different needful topics for our benefits only. His dedication towards the academics is unparalleled. He always wanted his students to learn and use his knowledge in practical life. So thank you so much, sir, for your involvement and cooperation. Also, I would like to thank Professor SP Guru, sir, for his sheer presence, which just make this webinar more interesting. Lastly, I would like to thank all the participants for their participation and their willingness to be with us. So thank you one and all.
So thank you, Abhipsa. I think, Gyana bhai, we are at the end of our session. So
Yes.
I'm just stopping the recording, then we can.
Yeah, thank you, Himanshu. Thank you, Himanshu. Yeah, thank you.